Welcome to this Essential Insights analysis. Today we are looking at a really massive paradox in American culture. On one hand, the United States has built some of the most prestigious universities in the world.
Right, and massively expanded access to education.
Exactly. But on the exact same hand, there is this profound historic suspicion of thinkers. Culturally, being an intellectual is often treated as an elitist or even un-American vice, rather than a public virtue.
It is a fascinating contradiction. To figure out why this happens, we are unpacking Richard Hofstadter's classic book, Anti-Intellectualism in American Life.
And before we jump into the details, experience a unique two-voice AI conversation powered by Google's Notebook LM for deeper, more dynamic book analysis presented by Mindful Moments. Nourish your mind on the go.
So Hofstadter's book really acts as a cultural X-ray. He starts with a brilliant distinction between intelligence and intellect. In America, he argues, we absolutely love intelligence.
Meaning practical intelligence.
You're right. It's the cleverness of the self-made entrepreneur or the inventor. It's entirely practical problem solving.
The genius who builds a better mousetrap. We celebrate that because the result is
Tangible, yes. But intellect is fundamentally different. Intellect is reflective. It is the critic or the scholar asking why we are building mousetraps in the first place.
or what the ecological impact of removing all the mice might be.
Precisely. Historically, Hofstadter notes, that kind of long-range, critical questioning makes people very uncomfortable. Thinkers are often seen as a threat to decisive action.
Which makes you wonder, looking at your own circles, who gets praised as smart and who gets dismissed as too intellectual. It is a subtle but powerful difference in how we value people.
And that cultural discomfort does not come from nowhere. Hofstadter identifies three major American traditions fueling this anti-intellectual energy: religion, commerce, and democracy.
Religion meaning.
While certain religious movements historically elevated simple, heartfelt preaching over rigorous, complex theology, then commerce created a powerful mystique of practicality.
I mean, if it does not turn a profit or build a bridge, it is just useless book learning.
Exactly. But the third engine, democracy, is perhaps the most fascinating. There is this beautiful foundational myth of the common person's innate wisdom.
But the shadow side of that myth is that it paints trained expertise as undemocratic.
Yes. If everyone's opinion is completely equal by default, specialized knowledge suddenly looks like a suspicious caste system.
How can a culture honor practical experience and democratic equality without using them as excuses to refuse uncomfortable evidence?
That is the core issue. And it brings us to how we actually train people. Hofstadter argues that as we pushed for mass schooling, institutions quietly sacrificed rigorous intellectual demands.
Because they had to accommodate everyone.
Right. So education transformed into utilitarian job training and what he calls life adjustment. The goal shifted from discipline inquiry for its own sake to simply making students comfortable and employable.
Think about the K-12 or college classrooms, you know. Does the balance tip toward comfort and utility or rigorous, uncomfortable thinking?
And when people are challenged by complex realities, especially during major economic and social disruptions, we see what Hofstadter calls status anxiety.
Familiar social hierarchies shift.
Yes, groups who feel they are losing their standing channel that anxiety into resentment against experts and elites.
It becomes highly moralized. Intellectuals are not just framed as being incorrect. They are painted as unpatriotic or corrupt.
Exactly.
When observing public attacks on scientists or journalists today, how much of it sounds like evidence-based critique versus a struggle over status and belonging?
Ultimately, Hofstadter is warning us about democratic survival. A healthy democracy requires skepticism, nuance, and a profound respect for evidence.
Anti-intellectualism threatens that by rebranding doubt as weakness. It paves the way for demagogues who value blind team loyalty over truth.
We really encourage you to use the book as a mirror to examine where you might prefer comfort over complexity.
And to help build spaces that value shared inquiry. As we wrap up this podcast, we want to leave you with three open questions to debate with others. First, where does Hofstadter underplay the ways ordinary people use intellectual tools in everyday life outside formal institutions?
Second, does his focus on religion, business, and mass democracy miss other drivers of anti-intellectualism, such as racism, gender norms, or media technology?
And third, in an age of information overload, is the main problem hostility to intellect, or the fragmentation of what counts as credible knowledge in the first place.
Those are crucial things to think about.
They really are. And to leave you with one final provocative thought, what if anti-intellectualism is not just a failure to understand complexity, but a deliberate, highly effective political strategy used to keep the public distracted while power is consolidated elsewhere? Something to mull over until next time.